Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chesapeake Foodshed Network's Coffee Talk series, Learning and Connecting for Action. My name is Yona Sipos, and I am the Program Director for the Chesapeake Foodshed Network, which is coordinated by Local Concepts, a consulting firm providing the development and backbone support for the CFN. I am joined today by another Local Concepts team member, Hannah Gross, who is the Outreach Coordinator for the network. Before jumping into the coffee talk, I'll provide a very brief overview of the CFN. The Chesapeake Foodshed Network is a group of organizations, businesses, funders, agencies, and other change agents working across the Chesapeake watershed to build a stronger and more resilient food system. We're a relatively new initiative, about 1.5 years in the making. The leadership group that spurred the network's development did so because they recognized that a great deal of extraordinary work was being done to advance our regional food system, but there was no entity intentionally trying to build connections, trust, and relationships among those out there doing the work. The mission of the CFN is to catalyze connections and collaborations that help build a sustainable, resilient, inclusive, and equitable regional food system in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We believe that by catalyzing connections and collaborations, we are stronger together, such that we can help to accelerate change in our food system. We encourage conversation and connection in various ways, including via social media. Please note the usernames and hashtags on the slide footers. We would love to see your tweets from today's coffee talk and beyond. This next slide shows a picture of our network building blocks. The foundation of our network is all about building connections, getting to know one another, sharing information and knowledge, building relationships and trust, with the thought that as we know one another better, we might, over time, see opportunities to align and to work collectively toward action. We invite everyone and anyone who supports our vision of a sustainable, resilient, inclusive, and equitable regional food system to participate in the CFN. The Coffee Talks are a platform that the network developed to help catalyze connections around specific food system topics. We partner with resource experts who provide a quick learning opportunity through their webinar presentation. And then during the webinar and in the follow-up materials, we identify ways for people to continue to engage and dig in deeper around that particular topic. Today's Coffee Talk, which is co-hosted by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, or COG, is an opportunity for all of us to learn more about the new USDA Local Food Marketing Practices Survey, and to consider how the survey and ultimately the data may be used to strengthen local and regional food systems. We are delighted that at last count, 229 people registered for this Coffee Talk. Before we get into a little bit more about COG and the relationship between the survey and COG, I'll just go through a few housekeeping details with you. There's a handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. These readings were circulated with the Coffee Talk announcement and are also included here for your reference. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the questions box in the control panel, and Lindsay Smith from COG will be collecting the questions and will share them with our presenters following the presentation. Within a few days of the webinar, we will share a recording of the presentation and a PDF of the slides, along with a post-webinar survey and some other follow-up materials. So with that, I will turn it over to Lindsay Smith, who is the Regional Food Systems Value Chain Coordinator for the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, again, who is this Coffee Talks co-host. And with that, Lindsay, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Fiona, and thanks to everyone who's joining us on the webinar today. I'm so excited to just share a few quick details about why we're interested in this survey and introduce you to the 3 experts we have from USDA. But as I'm looking at who's on the call, I'm just pretty blown away by this gathering of local and regional food systems expertise. So with that, just to tell you a little bit about who we are, COG brings together area leaders to address major regional issues in Washington, D.C., suburban Maryland, and Northern Virginia. The COG region, which you'll see in cream or light yellow on the map, is currently home to more than 5 million people and 3 million jobs. Like most metro areas, we have a mix of land uses and development patterns in our region, everything from compact, transit-oriented neighborhoods to suburban communities to low-density rural places where agriculture and other resource lands predominate. Our 2012 What Our Region Grows report brings attention to opportunities for supporting our region's agricultural economy at a time when the region continues to develop and exert pressure on important resource lands. The report used Census of Ag data as the basis for much of the analysis on regional production. We plan to update the report, but we could use more data on the production and sales of local food for direct human consumption, even if some of this data is for the larger Mid-Atlantic or Chesapeake region. So we're excited to understand how the results of the USDA's Local Food Marketing Practices Survey could inform this. I'm a member of the Chesapeake Foodshed Network, and I also get to work with one of today's presenters, Jim Barham, as part of USDA's new Food Link initiative that Yona mentioned. When I heard about USDA's new survey, I knew that we would not be the only ones interested in learning more about it. I want to thank the Chesapeake Foodshed Network for hosting today's webinar and thank the 3 USDA staff we have presenting. I encourage you to read the full bios for Jim Barham, Donald Buysse, and Steve Vogel on CFN's website if you haven't already. Briefly though, Jim is an agricultural economist in USDA's Rural Development Agency. Donald is the branch chief in the National Agricultural Statistics Service Census and Survey Division, and Steve Vogel is an agricultural economist with the Economic Research Service at USDA. Jim, Donald, and Steve, thank you, and please take it away.
Welcome everyone today. Let me go ahead and switch us over to the presentation here. Give me 1 second. Oh. All right. Bear with me, folks. Okay. Just as a quick check, Lindsay or Yona, can you confirm that the slides are up?
They are. Looks good.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I'm Jim Barham. I'm at USDA's Rural Development. As Lindsay said, I'm joined here with Steve Vogel from Economic Research Service and Don Buysse from NASS. And we're just as pleased to see a great turnout today and to learn about our new survey. So without further ado, let me go ahead and give you a little quick overview of what we'll do. We'll start with a little background on really the why of doing the survey in the first place. And then we'll move into some of the kind of history of our Census of Ag as well as our Agricultural Research Management Survey on what data does that produce that helps us understand the local food sector and what are some of those limitations, which ultimately led us to develop a new survey that we're going to really kind of dig deep into today. And then we'll close it out with a few next steps of what's going to happen with this survey going forward, and then hopefully have a good chunk of time to answer any of your questions. So I would certainly encourage you at any point during this webinar to put questions in the chat box, and Yona and Lindsay can kind of get those a little organized, and we can hopefully answer most of your questions today. So I just briefly wanted to talk about an initiative that probably most of you have heard about. It's the Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food initiative. It's a department-wide initiative to support the development of local regional food systems. Steve, Don, and I are all part of the KYF task force, as we call it, the Know Your Farmer task force. It includes really every agency with that USDA, and it serves several purposes internally. It's really a fantastic mechanism for us to be able to collaborate with each other, learn what we're doing so we don't duplicate efforts. And it's also a great tool to really raise the conversation and elevate the conversation about the role and importance of local and regional food systems in the U.S. this survey is kind of quintessential KYF work in the sense that this was a collaboration between quite a few of our agencies to come together in fairly short order to put together what we think is really a excellent survey that's going to serve the local food sector quite well. But what's the why? Why are we so interested in local regional food systems? And for I think a lot of you on the phone, this may be a no-brainer, but we're the market. We're responding to the consumers who want to know their farmer and want to know where their food comes from. And we know there's robust demand for this local and regional food. So I just put up a few statistics to kind of highlight some of that. Certainly we're seeing in the grocery stores with 87% of shoppers looking for local food when they're there. It's been on the what's hot list within the restaurant industry for many years. We're seeing a huge uptick in the number of farmers markets, certainly since 2009, as well as an uptick in the number of food hubs across the country. And we know from this this market demand that, hold on one second, folks, I'm getting a little something here. We know that this market demand is huge. It's not just about direct-to-consumer markets like farmers markets and CSAs, but it's really about other intermediated markets, how we're getting into grocery stores and restaurants, and then the role of local food distributors and food hubs. And we have been able to, again, to cobble together some numbers that help us understand the overall local food sales sector. And it's what we call, or our Dr. Vogel here, we call almost a synthetic estimate, which he's going to go in a little bit more detail in the next slides, which is really digging a little deeper on the Census of Ag and the Agriculture Research Management Survey. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
Okay, yes, that's a synthetic estimate of $6.1 billion in sales of local foods for 2012, and that's a conservative estimate. It's based on using two types of data. The first is the Census of Agriculture, and it's been collecting data since 1978 on direct-to-consumer sales and farmers participating in them. However, in 2012, for the first time, the census asked the question, do farmers actually market sales through local retailers, restaurants, distributors, and institutions? And we, in previous ERS publications, have referred to them as intermediated marketing channels. That is, they're short supply chains that reach the consumer, and they're locally based. Now, the strength of the census is that it's benchmarked. I've had to use the census to make sure that the ARMS data makes sense. So this census benchmarks farm counts on direct-to-consumer sales and intermediated sales through channels and the value of direct-to-consumer sales. So it's essential that we have good benchmark data. The other advantage of the census is that it has state and county level data. So we know that there's regional variation in local food systems, and this data provides it. However, in 2012, the census failed to ask what was the value of sales through these intermediated marketing channels. And so that's why we talk about a synthetic estimate, because we don't really know the size. And previous ERS studies have shown that these other intermediated marketing channels account for as much as 80% of all local food system sales. So the other main national data collection system that I work with is the Agricultural Resource Management Survey Phase 3, and it focuses on the farm operation and farm household well-being. It's an annual survey taken every year. It samples about 1% of the farms, 20 to 25,000 farms, and its mission is designed to provide an accurate picture of the farm sector and farm households overall. So it oversamples large farms. After all, they represent the largest share of production, and farms in the 15 core states. And since 2008, it has also collected data on the value of sales going through intermediated marketing channels. Now, its strengths, of course, is that it is very detailed. And so we can get per farm estimates. We can see farms by farm size, sales class, and the statistics on the shares, that is, what % of local food farmers sell through direct-to-marketing channels. Those statistics over different years have less variation, so they're much more reliable. On the other hand, the biggest problem with this survey is that year-to-year variation can be quite large. And if you want to see this, go to the appendix of the 2015 Trends in Local and Regional Food Systems report released to Congress, and there's a big appendix that explains the difficulty. And so in a sense, they become less reliable. So, and also I can't report regional statistics, and ever since our initial report in 2011, that's one of the most important points of this is to be able to have regional statistics. Finally, one of the interesting things about ARMS, because it is only 1% of the farm population, is that we find ourselves chasing moving targets. You know, we see local food system market innovation just going faster than we can collect the data. An example is the farm to school sales that was just reported in the farm to school census was 800 million. ARMS doesn't report any sales yet. So it means we're not really focused on collecting the data from the regions where it matters. So we're just missing it. So that's why this is a synthetic estimate, and that's why we move into, we don't know much about this guy. We know a lot nationally, but regionally we don't know. And so this is why it's sort of become a black box. And the thing about the black box, the way we think about it is conceptually, when we have surveys on farmers markets, on school districts using farm to school programs, and on food hubs, they give us data on the operation of these programs, but it's really hard to go back and say, well, can you tell us about the farmers that use them? So what we're trying to do is get the farmers to look forward beyond the farm gate. So we want them to tell us, not only do you have sales going through these marketing channel outlets, but what do the characteristics of these marketing channel outlets look like? Because we know regionally, food hubs can be large, they can be small. CSAs can be one farm, they can be 100 farms. So we really want to get that demographics and that regional differentiation. The other thing is that, again, I guess that's it. So let's move on.
Okay, it'll be my portion. This is Donald with the National Ag Statistics Service. As you can see, and as Jim mentioned, this is really a collaborative effort and a real testament to some of the good work being done at USDA. A lot of agencies have come together with one goal in mind, and that's to provide more data and provide help policy decisions, inform policy decisions about this, what we consider an emerging trend. And what that is something that the census has always sort of hung its hat on, is the fact that, oh yeah, it's once every 5 years, but what it does is takes a snapshot in time. And so over the course of time, just like the direct to sales, to consumer sales has been around since 1978. Now all of a sudden we've got 2012 data, and we're at the beginning, not only benchmark data, but we've got baseline data for this information. So it was a real collaborative effort amongst all these people that sort of started, had its genesis with the KYF movement, and it's led to a lot of discussion. We've had highs and lows with content development. We started with wish lists of content. We had to trim it down because, again, one of the things we have to emphasize as a statistical agency is defining our population. And so we're not going to be getting at people that are retailers. We're not going to be getting at people that may be marketing things that they grow in their own garden. These are going to be farms. And so that's one of the things that we have to definitely hold on to and keep in the back of your mind is we're getting farmers. The Census of Agriculture identifies farmers, and from there we can use that as a vehicle to get more detailed data about a particular practice or a particular sector of the ag industry. So these very much have to keep that in mind, that we're asking our farmers. I'll take the opportunity now for any farmers that may have joined us, or for any of you that know farmers, thank them for their cooperation for the Census of Agriculture. Thank them for their cooperation for the local foods. Without them, we're really all sort of operating continually in a black box. So all that work went into it. All these people came together. Everyone sort of joined forces to try to make this the best product available. And with all the discussions that really lasted for years and years and really got cranked up about I would say 14 to 16 months ago, we ended up with what you see flashing on your screen, this survey. really just a piece of paper. It represents so much more than a piece of paper. It represents answers to questions that Jim and Steve and many people have had for a very long time. So with that, we embarked on doing the survey. We wanted to make sure that we captured the right population, so we used our Census of Agriculture results to identify the frame. We also did some list building because this is an emerging trend, and as such, we want to make sure we're representing everyone out there that's a farmer and is using this practice. So with our, if nothing, statistical agency, we really have to hang our hat on methodology. And so we had many discussions internally here at NASS with our methods division, how to best represent this population. And when it was all said and done, we decided, we settled on to factor in making sure we had quality statistics. We had enough statistics to provide some data beyond just the national scope. We settled on about 44,000, just over 44,000 producers, farmers nationwide that would receive the survey. And we went forth and got our O&B clearance to do so, and we mailed out in April. It was really a breakneck pace. We got to take our time with developing the survey, but once it was ready to go, man, we were moving at a New York minute. So we go in April. Since April, we've gone out and we've done a second mailing, sort of a traditional approach to collection of Census of Ag program data is that we like to do 2 mailings. So we've done our second mailing. We made the survey available both through mail and online, and as you might expect, the results for with this emerging trend, you get a lot of people that are interested in providing their information online. So we capitalize on our electronic data reporting instrument to both increase the number of reports we had. So we've done our 2 mailings. This week we started our non-response phone follow-up, and that'll run for the better part of this month and into a little bit of July. Our data collection will close out in August, so there is time to report. So thank the farmer that's reported, or encourage the farmer that hasn't to fill out the survey. Anything you want to know about the survey, you can always visit us at the website on the screen. We do intend to take time after data collection to analyze the data. As with any new study, any new data collection effort, we do need time to make sure the data is right. We are in the business of putting out timely and accurate statistics in service of the United States Department of Ag, and we want to do that. So there's going to be a little bit of time that we want to look at the data to make sure we're right. We'll be visiting with Jim and Steve in the meantime to answer any questions that we might have.
All right, so here's where we really get to geek out, which is we're going to go and walk you through different parts of the survey. So I'm going to close this out and actually open up a PDF version of the survey, but if you want to, you could also download the survey if you haven't already. You can look at it that way too. I'll be mentioning specific sections and questions within those sections. So hopefully this will work for us, and I can bring it up here. We may have lost it. So I'm going to download it myself. Somehow our own survey got. Here we are at USDA, and we can't even access our own survey. See here. Look at that. Everybody can see this little face there.
If I can, let me try to.
I can also. Okay.
Wait, I thought I had it.
Shall I bring it up on my screen, Jim?
Yeah, go ahead. And you can actually, yeah, bring it up on your screen if you can.
Great. One moment. Let's just see here. How's that?
Now, will you have to scroll through for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you stop right there, scroll down to, we're going to go to section 1. Question 1, it's on page 2. You can just stop halfway right there is fine. And you can go ahead and actually blow it up a little bit more because I'll be highlighting certain questions. Make it a little bit larger just for folks. That's good, perfect. Okay, great. So here's the things I wanted to highlight first and foremost. There is a lot of marketing channel questions that we ask, but we actually tie a lot of that to whole farm production data. Part of the reason for that is that we're enough years out from the Ag Census that we can't confidently connect, say, that farm operation to this new data. So what we've done here is both have marketing questions, which is the first part of the survey, with some production-related questions, and then you'll see there's some other information as well that we think is pretty exciting that really provides kind of a whole farm picture. So direct-to-consumer sales, it's a big piece, obviously, of the local food sector, and we dig in to basically ask about 5 of these market channels. So those include farmers markets, on-farm stores, roadside stands, CSAs, and online marketplaces. So those are the 5 market channels, and then we just have more of a catch-all other, which could be things like pick your own mobile markets. So if you scroll down to question number 5, just a little bit lower here, one of the things we ask in each of the market channel questions where we dig a little deeper is actually how many miles is that operation to from, say, the farmer's market or to the CSA drop-off spot. And part of the reason for asking that is really to get a sense of when, for a farmer who is selling to their, highest grossing farmer's market, how far are they willing to go? Is this something where they'll go 200, 300 miles to get to a really good farmer's market? Same thing with CSA drop-offs, and so this gives us kind of a geographic dimension that Steve will want to talk a little bit about.
Well, just briefly here, even from ARMS data, if you're in the Midwest or you're on the West Coast, you're likely to drive much further to any of these outlets than you would, say, on the East Coast where population densities are higher.
So if you keep scrolling down, we'll go actually to page 3, question 21. So again, each of these, the questions here are for each of those market channels, asking a similar set of questions. And then one of the areas that was important to us also is obviously a growing and emerging part of the local food sector are these online marketplaces, which a lot of them are the online farmers markets or online buying clubs. And we want to, this is the first time in the survey that we actually had to put a kind of a definition of not necessarily a definition of local, but put some mileage around that, because one of the issues, let's say, with online marketplace is I could be Farmer Jane from California, and I'm actually doing online sales to New York City of boxed beef program. So we want to make sure as we collect this data that there is a local proximity to it. But most of the time when we're talking about the different market channels within direct-to-consumer or direct-to-retail, we know that farmers aren't going to drive, say, 1,000 miles to go to the best restaurant to sell their products. But online marketplace was one of the tricky ones. So we just had to put some parameters around that particular thing. And the use of 400 miles was, some might say, well, that seems a little generic or that seems arbitrary, but it is tied to a couple specific programs that we have in the 2014 Farm Bill that required us to actually define local. So for example, a lot of you are familiar with the Local Food Promotion Program, the program to support and fund local and regional food enterprises. Well, we had to kind of define local and regional food enterprises. And that part of that 400-mile radius was used there. We have a guaranteed loan program in rural development where I said that also had parameters, and they did something similar with that. So we're trying to be a little bit consistent with that. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that there. If you scroll down to question 24, which is, you can actually see it right there, another thing that we wanted to highlight, perfect, you stop right there, was SNAP. And what is the role of SNAP with the local food? We know it's a big piece of farmers markets, and we've promoted pretty heavily the use of EBT, SNAP redemption at farmers markets, as well as with nutrition incentives. But where are we seeing it in some of these other market channels, like in CSAs? There's more opportunities to be able to do it there or with mobile markets. And Steve has something here. Why don't you go ahead and say, Steve?
Oh, okay. I'm just saying that this issue was in the 2014 Farm Bill, which we're linking EBTs with local food marketing outlets. So that's one of the reasons we're pushing in this direction.
Okay, now if you go to the next page, just the very top, which is question 26. So in every market channel, well, in the watermark market channel for, say, direct-to-consumer markets, as well as some of the other direct-to-retail markets and others that we'll show, we ask the farmer when they actually first started to produce and sell through these particular market channels, which really gives us almost a sense of entry of, were some of these, were the direct-to-consumer market channels more popular at certain times versus direct-to-retail? We can hypothesize that a lot of it started more direct-to-consumer, that moved into more of the direct-to-retail and institutional markets, but this is an opportunity to be able to capture some of that data there. And then you can also see, if you scroll just a little bit further down, Yona, that what we also ask for every market channel are the crop sales as well as the livestock sales. And if you go a little bit further down, we also ask that too for each market channel for value-added products. So we have both specifying the types of value-added products and then the sales value of those value-added products. So we get pretty deep and detailed with all of these. Okay, so I spent a lot of time on that, and now if we go to page 5, you'll see section 2, question 1, is that we do the same set of questions for other market channels. And the two that we focus in on here are supermarkets or supercenters, and restaurants or caterers. And then the others get kind of collapsed. Other like the independent grocery stores, corner stores, that type of thing, all get collapsed into the other. So, and then we, just as I just explained, and we look at mileage there, we look at the crop and livestock and value-added sales for these market channels as well. So just to give you a sense of that. And so now we can actually go all the way to section 3, which is page 6. Yeah, so, all right, so right here, again, we're looking now at beyond we just did retail, now we'll do institutional sales, and we focused on 3 market channels here, K through 12 schools, colleges and universities, and hospitals. And those were the 3 that we felt we're seeing a lot of sales in, and also some of the more promising institutional markets. So that's what we dig deeper into those, and then the others are collapsed under a funnel category. Okay, so now you can go to scroll through actually the section 4, which is the next set of marketing channel sales questions. And this one is brand spanking new. We have never really had an opportunity to ask these types of questions on any of our survey work. And this is this idea of these intermediated market businesses, food hubs, food processors. And I wanted to just highlight even like the definition here, which we had to really go back and forth a lot about to help clarify what we're talking about here, which in this case is a business or organization in the middle of the supply chain marketing local and or regionally branded products. And these include things like distributors, food hubs, brokers, auction houses, wholesale. And so what we have here, and you can scroll down a little bit to question, let's see. Oh no, we can actually just scroll. So we ask the same set of questions as the intermediate market in terms of crop sales, livestock, and again, the value added similarly to that, so these direct to intermediate market channels. We expect, so when Steve and his colleagues at the ERS came up with their synthetic estimate of those intermediated market channels, those non-direct to consumer market channels, those were actually direct to retail, direct to institutional. Yeah. And so this being able to capture some of this, which we think is actually the largest share, I would surmise, and we'll find out, the largest share of the local food sector has been completely missing from the overall equation.
One of the things, the old literature that we've worked on where we distinguish between direct-to-consumer versus intermediated marketing channels, sales through those that's obsolete. We're really looking at something much more complex. The other important thing for you researchers out there is we expect farmers to have a portfolio of marketing channel use, and that would be defined spatially too, and then we would see differences. So I'm going to take over and go through section 5, 6, And this is section 5 here. If you scroll down a bit, keep going to question 3, and then I'll bring question 3 to the top. What we're doing here is collecting whole farm data. Again, we need to know size, we need to know sales, and we're doing this because we can't go back to the 2012 census and pick up that observation. If you go to question 8 quickly, it's the next page. And just, this is the type of farms by production type that we collect data on, both on what you produced on the farm as well as what you may have marketed through local channels. So it's possible for a corn and bean farm in the Midwest to carve out some acreage for vegetables or sell something through local channels. We really want to be able to capture mixed farms, and so that's why this is detailed. We don't know what kind of data we'll get. So if you go to page 12, page 12, question 13. That's additional data okay. So now this is brand new. This is one of the things that makes this survey interesting, is that basically what we've done is we've given, since farmers in this sector, marketing and production decisions are intertwined, we're giving equal weight here. And for the first time, we're asking questions on market channel expenses. And this really has a lot of economic development import if we get good answers, because in a sense, a lot of these expenses really flow out into the community and into the non-farm community. And those are the linkages we kind of want to be able to tease out. Again, this is a first time around, so I'm sure we'll make mistakes, and we'll just see what we can do with all this data. If you can go to section 6 on practices, that's the next page. Let's scroll down, let's stop at 1. Okay, there's 3 things in this that are important. One of them is the use of the internet. A lot of my work that I've written up on local food systems, I've been impressed on the role of the internet. In some ways, this is my personal opinion, I think that local food systems is the 21st century sector of ag, because they've depended so much on internet resources. And I don't mean physical resources, but things like online services, online businesses, online markets. So the question 2 asks, what resources did you use? Did you use virtual businesses? How did you use them? Question 3 then says, okay, you maintain a website. We know many farmers maintain websites. So we would like to know, how they use the website. One of the issues that I think is going to go forward for several rounds of census, ARMS, and what have you, is how to better capture or integrating the use of internet resources in the farm operation. And we're just scratching the surface here. Question 5, of course, we're asking about farm take-up on various programs that have been made available for local food system farmers. Equip. A lot of farmers who use high tunnels or hoop houses, they partially finance them through Equip incentive grants. Whole farm protection, we now have, FSA now has a program that will offer insurance on whole farm protection.
It's RMA, but that's
RMA, thank you.
FSA has the non-insured crop disasters.
And FSA now offers microloan programs. Yeah. So we want to, at ERS, we have some behavioral economic research looking at farm take-up. Now, question 6 is unique, I think, to all census and questionnaires. A lot of issues facing local food farmers, particularly small farmers, because they're most of the population, is credit access. Well, one of the issues that if you talk to a lender is credit worthiness. So this really asks, these questions ask, okay, to what extent, how much information are you providing in terms of your farm operation? And so that's novel, and so we hope to get some response from that. Now if you go to section 7, the next page.
So one of the other things we wanted to begin to get a handle on are how are these local farmers differentiating themselves in the marketplace? And one way to do that is by marketing certain claims that give the consumer confidence of the types of products you're growing. So we have question 1 here asking about, well, certainly there's our certified organic program, but there's a lot of other third-party verification, certification programs around, say, grass-fed, pasture-based management, or animal care, animal welfare approved or certified humane. These are really, we're seeing a significant uptick, or we expect to see that many of these local food producers are utilizing these programs to really differentiate themselves and, hopefully seek a premium in the marketplace. So that's what that helps us to begin to understand. And then the other piece is piece of this is food safety. I don't look at that. That's not a marketing claim, but it is with the Food Safety Modernization Act, a huge thing going forward for a lot of local farmers who intend to sell into these intermediated and retail and institutional marketplaces. Their ability to have a food safety plan, and in many cases even a third-party audit from USDA or other auditing services. So this again, thinking this as a benchmark, we expect to see that quite a few farmers have started to take those steps, and I'm sure in the future even more so. We don't want to lose some of these institutional and retail markets. So that's what that is. And then section 8, Dawn is going to just briefly talk about this section on personal characteristics.
Yeah, so as with the Census of Agriculture, we've really gone beyond how many farmers are out there. We want know more about these farmers, not only what they produce and how they produce it, but who they are. There's a real push to understand who the farmer is when you get into succession planning and the different types of infrastructure for farms, the different structures of surveys going on. So we've actually changed the Census of Agriculture and incorporated some of those changes into this personal characteristics. For one, we've changed the name of it. We used to ask for operator characteristics. The term operator, we understand, is people don't know what that means. So we've changed it to personal characteristics. A subtle change, but something that we hope gets us more support and is more a term that more people will understand and thus not be confused by going into questions because the section is maybe not applicable to them. You also see that we ask for person 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's a change. We used to ask for operator 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, we're understanding, we're listening, we're understanding, and we're changing these. So as you go through that section, you'll see questions similar to the Census of Ag, and you get an idea of male and female operations. You get an idea of the race, some ethnicity. I believe there's a question on the veteran status. So those are all hot topics that the USDA and really the Statistical Society as a whole is interested in knowing. Again, as I say, and I've said it in the last 6 months, I've said this in many presentations, it's not about what's being produced, it's about how it's being produced and who is producing it. And that information, as we made that available for a long time with the Census of Agriculture, that's the real change. And when people have these smartphones and they're seeing that they want information, okay, I got information, now I want more. I want more information. And so that'll get into my last slide, because I know that we're going to put out the results of this survey in December as we switch back to the presentation.
So Yona, do we need to share screen, or do you actually see our screen?
Are you back up with the Barham screen?
Yep. Okay, so push show my screen there.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
So can you see the more to follow screen?
Yes.
Okay, so when I say more to follow, I mean, it really is the case. We put out the Census of Agriculture, and there's a lot of questions answered in that, but it only really opens the barn door for more questions. So the proverbial barn door swings open, and people see, hey, what about this? Well, I'm not sure if I understand that, so they start asking more questions. And that's where we're, as a statistical agency, we have to be nimble in that respect. So we put out a large data set. We think we know what the community wants, but there's always more questions to be answered. And so we have a data lab that we set up to answer those questions in a special tabulation. Those can be requested at that email address. There's also other means just by simply visiting the Ask website to reach out to the data lab. The nice thing about the data lab is that data, once it's made available to you, it's made available to the public. So So if you're asked, if you have the question, there's likely many others that have the question too, and so we want to make sure that that is publicly available. Our main one that we've used historically has been right here in the South Building in Washington, D.C., the USDA South Building, but we've since expanded that out to our 12 regional field offices. So if you're out in California or if you're out in Colorado, we have a regional field office in each of those states and others that you can go, and so you don't have to come all the way to D.C. to get this information. Hopefully there's something close by, at least within driving range for you to get in there and look at data. I will say that we reserve the right to exclude some people from the data lab. We're not interested in regulatory agencies accessing this data. NASS does not want to associate itself with regulatory. We are not regulatory, but certainly analysts and researchers across the country, we welcome their participation in the data lab, and we encourage it. There is some paperwork they have to fill out, but it's relatively easy to do so, and then you can hopefully, we want to teach the man, we want to teach the person to fish, and so hopefully you can go out and find that information for yourself if we can't make it available in a special tab. And finally, this doesn't really end here. With all the work that we did leading to the 2012 census to add the question about whether or not someone had these practices with intermediate markets, we've applying lesson learned for the 2017 Census of Agriculture. So we're not asking that whether yes, they did or no, they didn't. We're actually trying to capture sales from that. That provides us, that puts us in a position where we can, if we do this survey again, which we do have the intent of putting this into our suite of census special studies or follow-ons, we intend to resurrect this survey once every 5 years, and then we start seeing not only the base, we've got the benchmark data, the baseline data, you can start seeing the trends within the trends. So with that, I believe we've banked ourselves a good 15 minutes for questions. I think we'll turn it over to Yona if you want to get things started on our question and answer session.
Thank you so much. Jim, Steve, and Donald presented a wealth of information and a wonderful presentation. I know a number of questions have come in, and I'll turn it over to Lindsay, who's been collecting the questions and who will now moderate the Q&A session. And if we don't get through all the questions, I mentioned before, we'll share the unanswered questions with the presenters for their review and further responses, and we'll be sending out a follow-up email early next week with the recording and a PDF of the slides and additional questions. So, Lindsay, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks again to our presenters. So we have a couple questions that I think we can put together. Could you talk a little bit about the outreach that you have done for the survey? What entities might be helping you push this out? Are the regional offices involved? Have you reached out to Farm Bureau, National Farmers Union, other regionally based farmers organizations? And then as a follow-on, any information you can share about the response rate so far and what your aspiration is for the overall response rate?
Well, I think that's going to be mainly me, Donald, but certainly Jim and Steve can interject if they know of any other outreach. We count on them to get the word out, as we do with all our USDA partners and agencies. In effect, we have a couple of different mechanisms by which we do it. First of all, we open and transparent. So we solicit input. We put this information out in part of the OMB clearance is to make this information available to the public, to announce that we're doing this survey, solicit input, solicit questions that someone might have. In addition, with any survey, we have our public affairs office that puts together a suite of products to get the word out. We've counted on them heavily for that, and as with all our surveys, and they've done a great job with, like all of us, in really sort of this breakneck pace. They've got those products organized, those materials organized and sent out to the regional field offices, and made announcements, whether it's through various news sources or email blasts or even putting stuff out on Twitter and in blogs. So in as much as we can do our outreach effort, we try to cast a wide net by getting that information out and using social media to do so.
Yeah, I just want to interject here. When Deputy Secretary Merrigan was here, when she would go speaking to farmers around the country, since many local food system farmers are small farmers, she would encourage them to make sure they're on the NASS rolls as registered farmers so that they will receive the census, because sometimes small farmers are underreported. So you too can put the word out to stakeholders and farmers to make sure that they're on the rolls.
And one of the things we did with NASS, this is Jim, is work with the overall Know Your Farmer Task Force that maintains, a pretty robust list of advocates and organizations associated with local food work. And so we worked with NASS's Public Affairs, added to their traditional list, would include, things like Farm Bureau and other traditional channels, and put a lot of other organizations on that list so that they themselves got that in the first round of outreach materials. And then we have since then followed up. Again, the Know Your Farmer Task Force has followed up with a number of key groups, people like the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, regional organizations like PASA, Moses, others who have a significant stake in this type of data and within the local food sector. So.
And I would say, based on some of the inquiries we've gotten, some of our questions we've gotten, emails or phone calls from customer service or through our 800 helpline, I feel pretty good that the word is out. We've had a lot of questions during this survey, so I think that we've done a real credit to our public affairs office, who may or may not be listening in, but we owe them a lot for helping us spread the word. I'm not the greatest advertiser in the world, but Merrigan and as Steve said, it's not too late. I mean, this survey, yes, it's underway. We're not going to add anybody to this survey, but the 2017 census is right around the corner. So it's so important. Our survey results are only as good as our list. And so we're constantly trying to build that list. And now is the critical time to get your name added. So anybody out there who didn't get a Census of Agriculture, yeah, I know it's a long form, but it's so critical to help inform policy decisions, to make informed policy decisions, I should say. And so we encourage everyone to sign up and be counted.
And what with her follow-up question on response rate?
Yeah, I can touch a little bit on that. I want to make sure that I don't want to complain or whine, but I think this is what's happening with a lot of statistical agencies, really all statistical agencies. Response rates are shrinking. So we want to change the conversation away from response rates. We don't want to use response rate as, okay, if you don't achieve a certain response rate, we don't want to discredit the results. It's really about coverage. So we want to make sure we cover this population. We want to make sure we cover both in production and in sales. And with this being new and the baseline benchmark data, we'll have a better understanding of how well we're covering. But to date, with 2 mailings and really starting our phone follow-up, we've gotten over 15,000 responses through mail or EDR, which is a long ways towards the number we need to supply accurate statistics at geographic levels beyond just the national. We don't know what those geographic regions are. We're going to let the data sort of drive that, but we do intend to put out information more than just at the national level. As I said, we'll do the phone follow-up. We're going to rely heavily on phone follow-up to get us up to a more desirable response rate, if we will. But we do have a sort of a number. I'm not going to share that with you, but that's really sort of our methods, folks, sort of say, okay, we're going to sample 44,000. This is the number we need to produce quality statistics. And when I say that quality statistics, I mean low variance. We need low variance, so we need to produce statistics that have a low CV, or coefficient of variation, so that you know that there's some precision there.
Yeah, I just want to say that working with ARMS data, to me, 15,000 sounds like heaven, even though it's not enough here, because I work with, under 1,000 sometimes for certain years. And that's why I can't provide any regional data. So the extent to which we can provide, more narrowly defined regions and states really depends on the response to the survey.
And a lot of
Steve, could I interject, because that's actually a great segue to what may need to be our last question, because Yona does need a few moments, about 3 minutes at the end here. But there are some wonderful questions here that we can follow up with via email. Do you have a sense of at what geographic unit this data is going to be reported? Will it be county? Will it be state? Will it be region? What are your thoughts on that?
Daily Week.
Yes, we've now Steve has been a champion of county level data. He mentioned early on it will not be at the county level, and it will not most likely not be any state level. And that again is our methodology for this is that we would have to have hundreds of thousands of people in the sample in order to produce those kinds of statistics. What we're going to do is we're going to get the data in. We have some idea of what we're going to likely do regional estimates, but the regions won't be just, there'll be some application of what we know about these populations. For example, the Northeast region, we know that to be a heavy sort of consumer of these kinds of these marketing channels. So we want to make sure we capture those. So there will be we will apply some of our knowledge, and we may very well get back with Steve and Jim to do that. So I can't speak to I can definitely tell you it won't be county and it won't be represented by every state, although every state, farmers in every state did receive the survey, but we are going to have to class it into regions. We just don't know what those are yet. We want to make sure that we follow our confidentiality policies to the letter, and because of that, it's just too hard to say at this point. Once we collapse these into regions, the intent will be to provide as much data as possible. Again, for anybody that may want more granular data, the special tabulation, you can always request that.
And researchers, you will have county identifiers. I mean, if you're going to do some econometric modeling, you'll be able to distinguish between urban, rural, and perhaps some more regional granularity. But NAS is talking about reports and data made available to the public. But this will take, years probably to really work through this data and understand it. And then we'll have 2017 Ag Census and maybe a follow-on. And this is the first case. This is the trial run, and so we know we're going to make mistakes, and we're just going to see what happens next. We're just going to let the data tell the story.
Great. I think we should just ask if any of the presenters have any quick last thoughts. There was a question of if there could be a reminder about how a farmer signs up to get a USDA survey, and then let's shift it back to Yona. Thank you.
So I think the easiest way is to go online to the Ag Census or NAS website. Just search for National Ag Statistics or NAS and find it. There'll be a link there to make sure I'm counted. That's a good way. You can contact our customer service. Any means, that's really the best vehicle to go out and find that information and get counted. And the last thing I'll say, I'll reiterate just a grand appreciation for all the farmers who participate in the Census of Agriculture. Without them, we are not, none of us are able to do our jobs at the good work that we do. So our hats off to the farmers who really are the biggest producers of in this country.
Yeah, and just to the end, thanks to Chesapeake Foodshed Network for giving us this opportunity to talk to you all today about this new survey.
Thank you so much, Jim, Steve, and Donald, for your presentation and for your appreciation of the farmers and for all that you've been willing to share. Also for your willingness to answer further questions and to continue engaging with people. And as one of the next steps, Jim and Steve and Donald have suggested that you follow up with them if you're interested ultimately in accessing the data, doing further research, or further understanding the research context. As mentioned, we'll be sending out some follow-up materials early next week. And then in terms of other ways to continue to be engaged and continue to dig in around this topic, as well as learning about the Chesapeake Foodshed Network and our co-hosts for today's presentation, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, or COG. Please just review these next steps. Check out USDA's Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food resources, reports, news, and blogs. There's a COG e-newsletter. They're on Twitter and Facebook. Lindsay is moderating a panel on inclusive food systems at scale coming up at the end of this month. And of course, we invite you to check out the Chesapeake Foodshed website so you can sign up for our list. And also, I'll just spend the last slide here highlighting some of the upcoming coffee talks and other network learning opportunities. We have some other regional issues being addressed later this month. The Food Safety Modernization Act was mentioned in your presentation, and we have a presentation on that in early August, as well as on the right-hand side, some opportunities to participate and dig in deeper around Chesapeake Foodshed Network and network learning opportunities. We are always interested in your ideas for coffee talks and other ways to connect and to continue digging in. So please do be in touch, visit our website and be in touch by social media. We are so grateful that you joined us today, and we look forward to continuing to connect with you further. Thank you so much again to the presenters, to our co-hosts, and to all of you for joining in. Wishing you a great day. Thanks so much.